registrar. And we want to deal with a very interesting character who seemed to be propping up all over the place. We are talking about the principal medical officer, which is responsible for institutions. Whilst people are dying in this country, this lady is given prominence of place on several important bodies in our country. And we want to know why, and our colleague will deal with that. I will come a little later on to deal with this silly, frivolous, vexatious, vacuous private member's motion in the name of a chap called Senator Anthony Vieira. And we have written 2 letters today, which I will share with you in a short while. So at this time, may I invite my colleague and friend, the Honorable Rudy Indarsingh, to address you on the issues that I have identified. The Honorable Comrade Indarsingh.
Thank you very much, Comrade Wade Mark, as we continue our work on behalf of the loyal and dutiful opposition of Trinidad and Tobago under the leadership of the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, because the opposition has a responsibility in fulfilling and ensuring that the constitution of this country is upheld. It is not compromised in any way. We also have a responsibility to ensure that the independent institutions that have been established under the constitution of this country is not compromised in any way. Democracy continues to prevail and the rule of law continues to prevail in Trinidad and Tobago. And these independent institutions, for example, we have seen over the last 6 years the issue of political interference, political maneuvering and so on, coming to the fore, allegedly at the Election and Boundaries Commission, also at the Public Police Service Commission. And that commission, until the issues are cleared up as it relates to what transpired under the chairmanship of Ms. Bliss Prasad and the perceived interference or the alleged interference by senior officials, senior office holders in Trinidad and Tobago, from the office of the President, the office of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The operations of the Police Service Commission will continue to be tainted. It will continue to operate under a cloud of darkness and secrecy. And this morning, we want to continue our role here in putting the issues to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to ensure that another institution in our country withstands the highest level of scrutiny. And that has to do with the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. And members of the public, we are here to ask a number of questions as it relates to the appointment of the Registrar of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago. And in today's Express, there is on page 5, Registrar's appointment under scrutiny. A very important article that has been written by one Ricky Ramdas. You see, it is important that the Industrial Court operates free from any kind of interference, whether it is one of political or one of personal relationships and maneuvering behind the scene, because the industrial court is a court of superior record. The industrial court is an arm of the judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago. It is a court that promotes and ensures that there's industrial relations, harmony, and stability in Trinidad and Tobago. And it is a court that has the workings or the input of the labor fraternity or the labor movement in this country, the business community in this country, and of course, the workers of Trinidad and Tobago. So if there is a breakdown in the independence of this very important institution, which is an arm of the judiciary of this country and is supposed to hand down judgment as it relates to workers and the business community and the overall industrial relations environment in the country, then chaos may reign if there is what I call political interference and a lack of independence. And you see, my dear people of Trinidad and Tobago, I am in possession of a series of WhatsApp messages that has come my way as it relates to the recent appointment of the Registrar of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago, which was done by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. And we have to ask the question here this morning whether there was the full participation of all members of this Judicial and Legal Service Commission as it relates to the appointment of one Mr. Kevin Swan, an attorney at law, who has been appointed, as I said, to the position of the Registrar of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago, and he assumed duties on the 8th of November 2021. And this screenshot and also the messages that have come to me has raised a number of questions in my mind, given my previous experience in the labor movement for more than 20 years, where I headed one of the largest trade unions in the country at the time, the All Trinidad Sugar and General Workers Trade Union. And based on my experience, I have to now question whether the appropriate mechanisms were followed by the Judicial and Legal Services Commission as it relates to the appointment of this individual, and how did he land this job and who he was connected to in terms of the hierarchy of office holders and so on in Trinidad and Tobago. And this will lead me to the very important issue in terms of what I have in my possession, and I just want to read for the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. And the messages are as follows. Being the registrar is no easy task, but he has faith in me and I refuse to let him down. There will be a lot to learn at the industrial court with all those unions and their cases. I am really happy for you. Try and link your BFF, please. You know I am experienced in legal affairs. Would you need an assistant or clerk? I can ask Iva if he needs anyone at the court. Knowing him, Iva will make room or he can squeeze you in. He has to be careful. He has to be careful. Too many eyes at the hall. which was why he organized for me to be at the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago. Imagine that. Registrar Kevon Swan. There is a beautiful ring to it. I want to repeat. Imagine that. Registrar Kevon Swan. There is a beautiful ring to it. When do you start? Question mark. And I hope I get a AU of your office soon, but I want to thank Ivor properly. He has done so much for me in getting this job, and I'm sure there were other good applicants more qualified than me. I want Trinidad and Tobago I have to repeat this because it's important that those who would have probably applied for this job and persons who are seeking employment within the public service of Trinidad and Tobago listen carefully. Soon, but I want to thank Ivor properly. He has done so much by getting me this job, and I'm sure there were other more qualified than me, but Ivor is good. I will ask for a job for you. Send me your CV. I am in extreme gratitude. What time do you go for lunch? We can do Adams around 12:30ish. Adams sounds perfect. Heading off to a meeting. We will speak soon. And a thumbs up emoji. All this from a series of WhatsApp messages that was sent to me, which I have in my possession, and it is a screenshot of conversations from the WhatsApp messages of one Kevon Swan, who boasts of a top judicial officer, and I do not know who this Ivor he keeps referring to in the messages that he exchanged with an individual as it relates to him landing this very important job of the Registrar of the Industrial Court, which, as I said, is an independent institution in this country under the laws of the country and established by the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is frightening to know that this individual, I want to repeat the quote, who boasts of the top judicial officer, who indicated, and I quote, who has done so much by getting this job, and I'm sure that there were other applicants who were more qualified than me. This is dangerous in the context of equality of treatment and equality of opportunity for all. And we have to ask the question here, the opposition is asking the question, why is there some kind of interference here, whether it is of a political nature, whether it is based on personal relationships and so on. And again, our independent institutions are being compromised. And who is this Ivor? I don't know. But we have to ask the very important question, was the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, did they perform their true duties in ensuring, one, the most competent person was appointed, and whether all the applicants for this particular job of the Registrar of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago was granted an equal opportunity and a fair opportunity as it relates to the filling of this particular vacancy. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition will continue to probe. The opposition under the leadership of Kamal Prasad Bisesa will continue to ask and insist that the rule of law, the Constitution, and our independent institutions are not compromised in Trinidad and Tobago. And we are asking the questions here this morning. Was the post of Registrar of the Industrial Court advertised? And in that context too, Mr. Swan has a number of questions to ask because to answer, in fact, in terms of did he formally apply for this position, and was he interviewed by the full panel of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, and does he have any relationships with anybody on the Judicial and Legal Services Commissions? And in addition to that, this person who continues to be referred to in the series of WhatsApp messages, did this person by the name of Iva, did that individual alert this Mr. Swan to the existence of a vacancy at the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago? Because, as I said, we have to ensure that there is thorough independence, and we have to ensure, because we do not want the Judicial and Legal Service Commission of Trinidad and Tobago to suffer the same fate as the Police Service Commission of this country. And my information, based on my experience in the labor movement and so on, we have to ask the question, what is the current environment in terms of the existing workforce of Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the existing workforce at the Industrial Court, whether there is proper morale, whether they have that sense of self-esteem and a harmonious working environment at this point in time to ensure that there is productivity, and all the sectors, or whether it is the business community, the labor community, the workers who come to the Industrial Court, that there's a sense of productivity and commitment towards ensuring that judgments are delivered in a timely manner, the work schedule and so on is done in a very clear and transparent manner. Because my information has led me to the conclusion that workers are in fear of victimization. They want to speak out on this particular appointment, but they are in fear of victimization, and they have alleged, they have indicated to me also, that the post of the Registrar of the Industrial Court was not advertised internally, as has been past practice and precedent or tradition in terms of when a vacancy arises. In fact, we have been told, and it is also out in the public domain, that this position has been vacant since December of 2020, when the former Registrar of the Industrial Court, Mr. Noel Innes, resigned. And the information that is before us is that the position was not advertised by the Service Commission Department, and there are many at the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago at all ranks of the workforce in terms of the organizational structure, who are of the opinion, or who have felt that based on the past performance and track record of the Assistant Registrar Katian Alexander Fraser, who would have acted on numerous occasions when Mr. Noel Innes, when he would have gone on vacation or he was out of the jurisdiction of Trinidad and Tobago, whenever he was out, Miss Katian Alexander Fraser, she acted as the registrar of the Industrial Court, and in fact, she had been performing, or she had performed the duties of the registrar based on the retirement of Mr. Innes. And we continue to ask, or will continue to ask some further questions here this morning, that whether the Judicial and Legal Service Commission was required to give a directive to the Service Commission Department to produce the advertisement, and also that advertisement would have been placed on the Commission's website, and for it to be forwarded and circulated internally within the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, there are some further questions that has to be answered. And in that regard, as I said, did the Service Commission Department issue any advertisement for the post of the Registrar of the Industrial Court? What is the process before such an advertisement is made? Did the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, as I said, advise the Service Commission Department? And if the advertisement was made, when and where? Because, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, the labor movement, the business community of this country, the workers of this country, when you go to the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago, you want to ensure that there is an independent office, an independent appointee in terms of the person who is holding the office of the Registrar of the Industrial Court. And we want to ensure that all the institutions here, the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, has operated with a true sense of independence. Nobody maneuvered behind the scenes. Nobody politically interfered. Nobody, because of relationships and so on, or perceived relationships, ensured that someone landed this very prestigious job at the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago. And I do not know, of course, if the screenshot that I referred to, or which I have in my possession, is indeed true. But we call upon the individual to say if indeed it is true, or whether he has distanced himself and so on. We want to give him the benefit of the doubt too, and call upon him to further clear the air, so that we could all go about, all stakeholders can go about with a sense of confidence in terms of the office of the Registrar of the Industrial Court, and by extension, the operations of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago. And in keeping with the theme of independence and the rule of law, and to ensure that our judiciary is operating with the highest levels of, as I said, independence, today I want to ask the question: why did the North Central Regional Health Authority Board of Directors and its CEO, a fella called one Davlin Thomas, flout the ruling of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to the reinstatement of a senior manager based on a ruling that was handed down by the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago? So you understand when I am referring to this particular judgment and so on, we in the opposition, we want to ensure that there is an independent industrial court at all levels of that court, because we must never forget that the industrial court has imposed a $20,000 fine on the North Central Regional Health Authority for the contempt of court after it failed to reinstate a senior manager to his substantive position at the North Central Regional Health Authority. And that board is a politically appointed board. It is appointed by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, of which the Prime Minister is the political head, and the Minister of Health, Terence Indarsingh, is part of the political directorate vis-a-vis the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We cannot separate it, because it is the North Central Regional Health Authority is based on political appointees, and it is a political appointed board that recruited the CEO in terms of one Mr. Davlin Thomas. And Mr. Davlin Thomas has to explain whether he took political instructions from the board and whether Minister Terence Indarsingh too is aware, or did he launch an investigation to find out why did the CEO and the board not implement the ruling and the judgment of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago to reinstate this senior manager, and they displayed flagrant disregard for good industrial relations practices, the rule of law, and was found to be in contempt of court, and they were fined, that is, the North Central Regional Health Authority was fined $20,000 for contempt of the industrial court. The senior manager was awarded $10,000 in damages, and you have to understand the history to understand what has transpired in terms of this flagrant disregard for the abuse, not the flagrant disregard, sorry, for the rule of law and the undermining of the independence of the court. Because this senior worker, this senior manager, was on suspension for more than 2 years, pending investigation. This is unheard of in the industrial relations fraternity of the country, and in terms of industrial relations laws and good practices. You cannot have a person on suspension for 2 years on full pay. That is a flagrant abuse of the rights of the worker. And how many workers probably would have suffered a similar fate under CEO Davlin Thomas and this particular board within the North Central Regional Health Authority. And this morning I asked Minister Terence Indarsingh, was you aware that a worker was on suspension pending investigation for 2 years? And were you aware that a judgment handed down by the industrial court was flagrantly disregarded by the entire board and the CEO? And if indeed you are aware, you need to resign. The entire board should resign. You should ensure that there is fair play and the rule of law is upheld at this state entity. And also, I am saying this morning that CEO Davlin Thomas must go also. So the entire board must be fired, and Davlin Thomas, as the Chief Executive Officer, he too must go based on what he has done in terms of his disregard for the rule of law and his disregard for the industrial court. Another example of the PNM's contempt for order and our nation's independent institutions. And we must never forget this individual that we refer to here this morning in the person of Davlin Thomas. Because Davlin Thomas, distinguished citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you must never forget that this is the gentleman who is alleged to have instituted, who would have instituted the issue of the rotation of senior doctors at the Cuba hospital that was fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. Because at the end of the day, the senior doctors, or the rotation of the senior doctors at the Cuba hospital has not solved the problem. And according to the Ministry of Health statistics, yesterday was the deadliest day of the COVID-19 pandemic, with a record of 28 deaths being recorded. And we in the opposition want to offer our condolences to all the families who have suffered such trauma and pain over the deaths of their loved ones. And among these deaths were a child, and there have been an increase in children requiring hospitalization due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The statistics or the figures will tell you that there are 1,947 deaths. And today we in the opposition, we want to ask, of this 1,947 persons who would have died, how many, in terms of those who would have been fully vaccinated, and also what vaccine did the deceased receive? Because we were told recently there were 56 or 57 deaths. I do not know how much have increased in terms of the numbers from a fully vaccination point of view, and whether these individuals would have received, those who would have died from a fully vaccinated point of view, whether we could get a breakdown from the Minister of Health or the Principal Medical Officer, Dr. Miriam Richards, because whether they received Sinopharm, they received Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and so on. Because so far for the month, I want you to listen very carefully here again, for the month of November, 251 persons have died so far from this virus, and 97 deaths occurred so far for this week alone, that is last week. Trinidad and Tobago also recorded another grim record, and we say this with no sense of happiness, but this is the reality that we are facing. And we have to alert, as the opposition, we have to alert the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the grim record is that 510 people are currently hospitalized for COVID-19 treatment. This is the highest number of people that have been hospitalized at one time since the COVID-19 pandemic. And what do you get for this? What do we get for this? We get chaos. We have been abandoned. The citizens of this country have been abandoned by the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and the Minister of Health, because they have told you, since they have lifted the failed state of emergency, that the current COVID-19 pandemic is now solely your personal responsibility. And I admit we all have to adhere to protocols and sanitization and so on, and that is an individual's personal responsibility. But they are telling you, apparently, if chaos reigns, if you cannot get medication, if you cannot get ambulances to transport you to the respective public health care system, if the parallel healthcare system in the country collapses, if you cannot get ICU beds, if you cannot get ICU trained nurses and so on, it is the individual responsibility. It is no longer the government's responsibility. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and Terence Indarsingh has abandoned the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And in their abandonment, I want to read again in terms of where we are this morning from to nursing staff at the Point Fortin Hospital from one nurse manager, I will not call her name, nurse manager at the Point Fortin Area Hospital, the 18th of November 2021, emergency mode at Point Fortin Hospital. This memo serves to inform all nursing personnel that Point Fortin Hospital is now operating at emergency mode. Our adult bed capacity has been increased to 95. Staffing levels have been supplemented by addition of other nurses. And again, we have to ask the question, the supplementation of nurses in terms of ICU and so on, are they properly trained? You cannot pick up any nurse and just put them to operate an ICU machine and operate in the intensive care unit, and that is why we will always continue to be on the heels of this government, and this process is ongoing. Nursing management is aware that our staff may experience an increase in stress levels by this announcement. Rest assured, nursing administration will do all in our power to ensure that we get through this together. And it is signed by the individual. And as I said, we are in a state of chaos because Dr. Rowley and the Minister of Health, they have abandoned you, the citizens of the country. And in addition to complement this chaos, this mess that we are in, what do you get for incompetence? You have the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, for reasons unknown, probably they can clear up the question, why the principal medical officer, now that is Dr. Miriam Richards, now seems to be enjoying the goodwill of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago, because this lady now seems to be a preferred individual who is benefiting from appointments lock, stock and barrel from the Rowley-led cabinet. She's now a director at the Eastern Regional Health Authority. She's a director at the board, or she has been appointed to the board of directors of NIBDEC. And I want you to listen very carefully now. She has been appointed to the board of Angostura Holdings, distinguished citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And in that regard, we must also ask the question, according to the Civil Service Regulation 137 of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Miriam Abdul Richards is a public servant and is bound by these regulations. Can her involvement in Angostura have compromised her appointment or her position that she currently holds as the principal medical officer of Trinidad and Tobago? And because in serving on this board, we must all remember that Angostura is engaged in the production of alcohol and the sale of alcohol. So the questions continue to mount in terms of where we are as it relates to the chaos, the state of our healthcare system, the rising COVID numbers, the deaths, the cases, the chaos, the confusion, and the abandonment of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the Minister of Health, Terence Indarsingh. I thank you, and I hand you over to Senator Weidman.
Thank you very much, my colleague, members of the media. Good morning. I would like to refer members of the media to our Constitution, and I refer specifically to Section 40, 1 and 2, which deals with the composition of our Senate. All of us would be aware of the following, and this is subsection 2 of Section 40. Our Senate consists of 31 members who shall be appointed by the President in accordance with this section. Of the 31 senators, 16 shall be appointed by the President, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister. 6 shall be appointed by the President, acting in accordance with the advice of the Leader of the Opposition. And 9 shall be appointed by the President in his discretion from outstanding persons from economic or social or community organizations and other major fields of endeavor. I would add outstanding as well as distinguished persons. Nowhere in this section C of 40 subsection 2 are these persons referred to as independent senator. So in our Constitution, there is no provision to describe these senators, 9 of them, who have been appointed by the President as independent. It is not in our Constitution. But these distinguished and outstanding persons have now become almost indistinguishable. They are indistinguishable from the PNM as it relates to what appears to have emerged to be their partisan politics and blatant, flagrant attacks on the opposition United National Congress and our 6 opposition senators. Now, colleagues from the media, members of the media rather, I want to explain what is happening so you will be able to appreciate where we are and where we are going. Now, let us understand what the concept of these president senators supposed to entail. Remember that this concept emerged under Eric Williams. It started under the colonial rule and it continued under Eric Williams. And these senators were appointed by the then PNM in 1961 when the Senate was established in order to support the status quo. As I said, it began under the British colonial rule and it continued under the PNM. So the whole concept of the so-called independent senators really constitute and represents a relic of the colonial past. And we are of the firm view that the time has come to review this particular concept as it relates to these independent, or as I call them, the President 9 senators. Now, we are at a stage where a matter has been filed, a motion has been filed in the Senate in the name of one Senator Anthony Vieira. I have been in the Senate for over 20 years, and I can tell you, it's the first time in living memory I have seen an independent, so-called independent senator file such a motion. And let me indicate to you what is at stake here. The opposition United National Congress is the elected, legitimate opposition as entrenched under our Constitution. Over 309,000 persons voted for the United National Congress. We who are in the opposition on the bench in the Senate, we represent the will through the opposition UNC, led by the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, the will of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So when we speak in the Senate, we speak on behalf, as a result of the party led by our leader contesting the last general elections and gaining over 309,000 votes. So we got into the Senate through the votes of over 309,000 people. In the case of these 9 presidents, senators, we don't know. They did not come through an electoral process. There have been no criteria outlined on how these people were selected, what basis was used to identify them, who recommended them, because nobody voted for them. But we are now being given advice from one member of this group as to how we should speak, what we should say, how we should behave. And that is coming from no other than the person who has filed this motion in the Senate, which is expected to be debated, I understand, on Tuesday. But who voted for him? Who the hell is Anthony Vieira to tell us in the opposition and as members of the Senate how to speak, how to behave, what we should say? Who gave him that authority? Brothers and sisters, this is a gigantic political conspiracy involving the PNM and these so-called senators appointed by the president to undermine the parliamentary democratic process. This is a direct attack on our Constitution. This is an attempt to hijack the Senate. And I want members to know, before I deal with some specific matters, that what is at stake here is our very democracy. The motion that has been filed by Anthony Vieira is an attack on our Constitution. It is an attack on our democracy. It is an attack on freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and also freedom of the press. And I'll explain a little later on what I mean by an attack on the freedom of the press. So members of the media, what we are dealing with here is a very serious assault on our democratic process. I listened to the Prime Minister addressing a meeting at Mason Hall last evening, and he made some astounding revelations. I will summarize them for you. He told the people of Trinidad and Tobago at that meeting in Tobago that he will be dealing with a new opposition shortly. What does the Prime Minister mean by that? He was referring to the fact that the autonomy bill is languishing in the Parliament. And he will be soon dealing with a new opposition and a new opposition leader to that effect. Why would a Prime Minister make such remarks? And this is why I come to the point of this motion. This motion filed by Anthony Vieira have received the blessings of the PNM. And as you know, the PNM does not want an opposition. Not in the Parliament, not under the Constitution, not in the country. Except if they can manipulate and if they can control and dominate and influence that particular opposition. So they cannot control, they cannot dominate, they cannot influence the opposition UNC, led by the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So he's looking for a new opposition. So we would like to ask the Prime Minister, where is this new opposition going to come from? Now, it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. A failure to hold democratic elections, and in this instance, a by-election in Debe South, is a threat to our democracy in TNT. It is not only a threat to the people of Debe South, who are without representation for over 100 days, but it is a threat to our democracy in TNT. So is that part of the plot by the Prime Minister to undermine and to further undermine the opposition United National Congress? Brothers and sisters, we feel very strongly about this development and the role of this particular individual senator who has taken upon himself the authority to lecture to the opposition UNC and to lecture particularly to members of the UNC in the Senate. So strongly have we felt about this matter, ladies and gentlemen, that the United National Congress took the decision to formally communicate with the President of the Republic, calling for the removal and revocation of the senatorial appointment of Anthony Vieira. And we sent this letter, a 9-page document, which I shall read for the record to Her Excellency a short while ago. They have received it. And I want for the record to share with you the contents of this letter that we dispatched this morning to the President of the Republic on this particular danger that we are facing with these so-called president's appointments. That is, the 9 senators appointed by the President, and in particular, Senator Anthony Vieira. Members of the media, we address this letter dated the 21st of November to the President of the Republic, Paula May Weeks. And it is titled, "The Immediate Revocation of Senator Anthony Vieira and the Appointment of a Truly Independent, Non-Politically Aligned and Non-Partisan Person." And I read this letter for the record and for the edification of members of the media. We write with reference to the caption matter. As senators of the opposition, it is within our constitutional remit, function, and duty to bring to your attention matters that threaten our twin island republic and which have the potential to unravel the very fabric of our democracy. We take our senatorial role seriously and will not shirk from our duty of fiercely representing the interests of all citizens and defending our democracy at any cost. We continue to face a constitutional crisis involving the appointment of a commissioner of police. We are overwhelmed with daily news reports detailing many unfortunate instances of heinous crimes perpetrated against women in our society, as well as children and other persons. We are confident that you continue to be intimately aware of the facts surrounding the resignations of 3 members of the Police Service Commission in September, followed by the resignation of the previous chairman, Bliss C. Prasad. What ought to have been a straightforward process in appointing a commissioner of police became a public scandal, descending into an untenable state. We do not propose to go into the whys and wherefores of what happened in this letter. Much doubt was cast on members of the last Police Service Commission, and there was and continues to be an unmistakable notion that there was political interference in what should have been an independent body. Any person with sense will appreciate that this has only served to engender a certain amount of distrust and discord. And by the way, members of the media, if you had any doubt about political interference into the operations of the Police Service Commission by no other person than the Prime Minister, you only had to read this headline in today's Guardian newspaper to demonstrate the flagrant political interference in the operations of the Independent Police Service Commission by the Prime Minister, which contributed to its very collapse. This makes interesting reading as it relates to this story that appeared in today's Guardian. Political interference by no other person than the Prime Minister, who swore to uphold the Constitution and the law of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Members of the media, the exact reasoning of all the resignations coming one after the other and the related matter of a withdrawal of the merit list had not been properly and publicly addressed and accounted for. Understandably, the country was anxious for an explanation and closure. Instead, what they got was strict secrecy, which left them confounded, and that was why we, the members of the opposition, became worried. For us, it was either people be told the truth or they continue to chase dark shadows in a desperate attempt to ensure that they are not being shortchanged of the protections of the Constitution. Members of the media, we pointed out to the President of the Republic that people are entitled to know the truth as to what happened with the merit list, as several questions remain unanswered to date, and countless citizens continue to hold the view that you had and continue to be in knowledge of how the process was subverted. Truth and accountability are paramount in any serious democracy. Speaking of truth, we are particularly drawn to the reference of Satyagraha, mention of which was recently made by the Honorable Justice Frank C. Prasad, as he spoke of a movement which became synonymous with the political philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. And we went on to outline these observations. We went on in our letter to the President to outline why Section 36 motion needed a debate in the Parliament. And therefore, the people of this country needed to be part of a conversation where their doubts and fears were allayed. And that is why we wanted to ensure that there was a debate that never took place in the Parliament. Now, it is our firm belief that another institutional vertigo has beset our country, which threatens to erode the indispensable democratic norms and values of our society. This cancerous threat that masquerades as an independent bench cannot be left unattended to, and in our respective view, must be dealt with decisively by your office. There is no doubting the principle that absolute freedom of speech is aspired to in the Parliament, and the importance of Parliament being the forum where everything is up for the most robust debate, notwithstanding that such debate outside of the Parliament may carry legal consequences in libel or worse. Parliament is that sacrosanct space in which freedom of speech and robust debate are guaranteed. It is that institution which insulates what is said from ordinary legal consequences. We indicated to the President that a dangerous trend is developing between the government and the senators of whom we complain herein. They are elusively bent on suppressing freedom of speech. This occurred at the parliamentary sitting on the 21st of October 2021, when they indisputably sided with the government benches. One may argue that the senators are free to vote how they wish, but a nauseating aspect of their self-analyzed requirements of being independent continues to present itself by way of a motion brought by and unlawfully pursued by Anthony Vieira, seeking inter alia to censure opposition senators. Members, a copy of the order paper embodying Mr. Vieira's private motion I have outlined to you will be debated on Tuesday of this week. Senator Vieira is seeking to have all 6 senators censured by the Senate. What does that mean? Is Senator Vieira using his majority on the backbench, 9 independent senators, including himself, along with 15 PNM senators, which are talking about 24. Are they using those numbers to expel, to suspend, to kick out the people's representatives on the Senate bench? Is that the objective of this motion when the senator says he wants to censure the 6 senators? Is the censuring of that motion designed to kick out the 6 senators? What is the diabolical plot and sinister intention of Senator Vieira and the PNM? Are they seeking to run the Senate without the 6 senators? And that is why this motion is calling for the censuring of these 6 opposition senators. It appears that the new leader of the independent bench is not the coordinator called Paul Richards. The new leader of the independent, so-called independent bench is Clarence Rambarat. Because Clarence Rambarat appears to be quite comfortable with this matter of the motion that we are going to debate on Tuesday in the Senate. So, members of the media, what has happened? We have seen, and we have pointed out this in the letter to the President, open attacks on the opposition senators by both Anthony Vieira and Senator Paul Richards. Members of the media, go to the newspaper report in the Trinidad Express dated October the 22nd, 2021, and written by Rhea Tate. And we quoted extensively for the President in this letter that we sent to her this morning what this independent senator, members of the media, an independent senator, so-called, a member appointed to the Senate by the President, supposed to be non-partisan, is supposed to be above the cut and thrust of the politics, ought not to find himself in the political guile, ought not to be attacking members of the opposition. But Mr. Vieira is no longer a so-called independent senator. He has now become a politician. And I want to refer you, because we referred the President to this particular article by Rhea Tate in the Express of the 22nd of October, when he described the opposition behavior as disgraceful. Now remember, Rowley had a press conference the same day, and he used the same language. He called the opposition behavior as disgraceful. Now we have Vieira saying it is also disgraceful. Is it coincidental? Are they using the same language coincidentally? It is rather strange. We pointed out to the President the entire article, which I wouldn't want to quote for you. I would ask you to read it. Then, not to be left out, we have Mr. Paul Richards. He joined the fray. He joined the fray. He joined the chorus. He joined the band. And he too attacked the opposition. I have never seen that in my lifetime as a senator with over 20 years of experience, where independent so-called senators openly comes out and attack opposition members. And they attack one, In this gentleman's motion that is being debated on Tuesday, he said all senators. We have 6 senators in the opposition and sitting on the opposition benches in the Senate. Vieira taking on all of us. Anthony Vieira, on behalf of the independent bench, or on behalf of himself, or the PNM, or all of them, is taking on all of us. Well, we intend to take him on. And we intend to take on the PNM. And we intend to take on all 9 independent senators and all 15 PNM senators. So let them come on Tuesday and let them censure us. Because we believe their goal is to kick out all 6 senators when this debate is over. So Senator Paul joined the fray, and he too engaged in this blatant and criminal attack on our integrity and our freedom of speech. I never knew that we had to counter Senator Paul Richards. I never knew that we had a responsibility to account to Vieira for what we say in Parliament. We are entitled to freedom of speech. That is enshrined in this book called the Constitution. And we don't have to account to Vieira when we speak, nor Paul Richards, or any independent senator, or Dr. Rowley. We have freedom of speech. And this came out of blood, sweat, and tears. And I want to tell the media this morning, we in the UNC will defend this Constitution. We in the UNC will defend our democracy. We in the UNC will defend the people of this country's freedom of speech. We in the UNC will defend the people's freedom of expression. And we in the UNC will defend the freedom of the press. Even if it means confronting the administration if they decide to take away our rights. We fought for our rights. Many citizens fought for their rights, and we intend to fight to defend and to maintain and to expand those rights. So I want to just point out that to the media. So members of the media, in this correspondence that we have sent to the President, as I said, it is 9 pages long. All 6 senators, may I advise you, members of the media, all 6 senators, I don't have a signed copy, we'll get a signed copy for you. All 6 senators signed this document, all of us. And this was dispatched to the President earlier this morning. We sent it to her. And let me tell you what the request is. Because as I said, I don't want to read the entire exercise. It will take a period of time that I have another matter to deal with. But I want to say on this matter that we miss. Thank you. Members of the media, I want to show you this one. This is signed by all of us. This is the one that we sent to the President this morning, calling for the revocation, the immediate revocation of Anthony Vieira. He's unfit to be a senator. He has taken a side. He has jumped into the political guile. He is partisan. He is a politician. And that is not the role envisaged by our Constitution for someone appointed by the President. So we call on the President to immediately revoke the appointment of Senator Anthony Vieira. And I haven't gone into voting as yet. That's a matter that we can deal with. But this is the letter that we have sent. Members of the media, there's a second letter we sent. This letter was sent this morning to the President of the Senate. It was delivered to the President of the Senate. I want to read the contents of this letter. It is signed by the Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate, my good self. It is addressed to Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate. It deals with the motion by Senator Anthony Vieira to censure opposition senators. The letter reads, and I quote, I write to you on behalf of all the opposition senators in the Senate to place on record what appears to be a gross flouting of the standing orders, an abuse of the discretionary powers reposed in your good office to facilitate a political attack on opposition senators. Our concerns outlined hereunder. Jump in the queue without consultation. The motion by Senator Anthony Vieira appeared under private member's business as motion number 7 on the order paper for the Senate sitting on the 16th of November 2021. And this is the order paper, members of the media, dated the 16th of November, last week Tuesday. There are 7 private members' motion on this order paper, and on page 8 of this order paper, Anthony Vieira's motion to censure all opposition senators appear on as number 7. On the order paper that we have for Tuesday, the 23rd, that matter is now number 1. So it moves from number 7 to number 1. And I will share it with you in a short while. My colleague will pull it up, and I'll share with you that order. So I continue, and I quote, on the 16th of November, the motion read in terms of the resolution, and I quote, this Senate censure the unparliamentary conduct of said opposition senators who by threat or molestation have attempted to obstruct, impede, influence, or interfere with said independent senators in the performance of their duties. End of quote. It goes on. The order paper for Tuesday, the 23rd November 2021 lists Senator Vieira's motion as number 1 and is now taking precedence over all other 6 motions it had previously trailed. Despite the long-standing and settled practice of the Senate, there was absolutely no consultation with the opposition bench before a decision was apparently made to proceed on Tuesday, the 23rd of November 2021 with Senator Vieira's motion. Now, members of the media, whenever you are moving a motion that is number 7 to number 1, I, as a member of the opposition, filed 3 private members' motions. They come 4, 5, and 6 before number 7. Number 7 breaks the queue, bypasses my 3 motions, and is now placed as number 1. And you know what is more egregious and more dangerous and disturbing? There was no discussion. There was no participation in the decision to move this from 7 to number 1 with us and with me. It was done unilaterally between the PNM and the independent so-called senators or senator. No consultation. We say it was a political conspiracy between the PNM and the so-called 9 independent senators sitting on the independent bench, and particularly the mover of this motion, Senator Vieira. That is the only conclusion we could come to. And I asked Senator Vieira whether he had discussions with Clarence Rambarat to take his motion from number 7 to number 1 without any consultation with the leader of opposition business who had 3 motions before his. We would like him to clear the air on this matter, because we believe that there is something in the mortar besides the pestle why this was done without any consultation. Time alone will tell. Having been excluded from the decision-making process, I continue, the opposition senators are justified in asserting that the government bench with its majority has facilitated the progress of Senator Vieira's motion before others in an attempt to discredit opposition senators. What is even more alarming is that the motion that was on the order paper for the 16th was changed. The original motion that appeared on the order paper for the sitting held on the 16th of November 2021 was simply one for the censure of the opposition senators. The motion that now appears on the order paper for the sitting on Tuesday the 23rd of November contains an additional resolution, no doubt approved by your good self in the following terms, and I quote, "And be it further resolved that a select committee be established to consider and report on a code of ethical conduct and behavior for senators." It appears that Senator Vieira's original motion, already standing in his name, was amended without engaging the required procedure set out in Standing Order 40, which requires amendments to be made during a sitting and they must be duly proposed and seconded. Members of the media, the motion that is before the Senate concerns the privileges of the Senate. The original motion contained a proposal for the censure of opposition senators in general for unparticularized allegations of conduct during the proceedings of the Electoral College on the 21st of October 2021 and in the media. So they are bringing a motion to censure us as members of the opposition on activities that occurred at the Electoral College during its proceedings on October the 21st, and which was also reported in the media. It cannot be denied that the original motion would have been considered as a matter of privilege and would have been governed by the procedure set out in Standing Order 30, where it is expected that the motion must be approved by the President. No debate would ensue. And if the President decides that a prima facie case is made out, the matter is referred to the Committee of Privileges. Members of the media, if we are being accused of misconduct, molestation, interference, bullying, threats, that is a matter that should go before the Committee of Privileges. It would give all of us an opportunity to plead, and we would be able to enjoy what is called natural justice. We are being asked to debate a motion in which we are being asked, the Senate rather is being asked to censure us for behaviors described by Senator Vieira, and we have no particulars of those charges that you are leveling against us. So we have to wait until the debate takes place on Tuesday to hear these charges. Look, Senator Vieira wants to be judge, jury, and executioner. And by extension, the PNM and the so-called independent senators, with this motion of censure against all opposition senators, they are acting as judge, as jury, and as executioner. How can that be fair? This is obviously inconsistent with well-established parliamentary practice. It goes against the grain of natural justice. And this is what we have pointed out to the President. And then Mr. Vieira adds the following: and be it further resolved that a select committee be established to consider and report on a code of ethical conduct and behavior for senators. We say this is a red herring on the part of this gentleman. Members, if you don't know, let me inform you. For the record, there is already a code of ethical conduct set out in Part 4 of the Integrity in Public Life Act, Chapter 2201, by which all parliamentarians are bound. So we have already in the Integrity in Public Life Act a code of ethical conduct. So why is Vieira introducing and calling on the Senate to establish a select committee to establish a code of ethical conduct for senators when already that exists in the Integrity in Public Life Act? That is why we say this is a red herring, because the real intention of this matter, members of the media, is to get the PNM to gang up with the 9 independent senators to censure 6 opposition senators. And censure means expelling, suspending the senators. So the minority, we are the minority. There is a minority behind us, but they have a larger number, 9. We are 6. And then in front of us, there are 15. So 15 plus 9, 24 against 6. Now, if that is not an attack on our democracy and the constitution of our country, members of the media, we don't know what is. And that is why we wrote to the President of the Senate this morning on this travesty of justice that is upon us and that is supposed to unfold on Tuesday in the Senate. And we wrote to the President of the Republic asking the President of the Republic to revoke the appointment immediately of Senator Anthony Vieira, because Anthony Vieira has now entered the political gayel. I was making a point earlier on, members of the media, how the Senate missed distinguished sons and daughters who passed through that Senate and who distinguished themselves in the quality and content of their contributions. I refer to people like Professor Kenneth Ramchan, Dr. Eastland Mackenzie, the late former Dana Sita-Hall, Martin Daly SC, Professor Ramesh Diusaran, former professor who is now deceased, Julian Kenny, former professor now deceased, John Spence, Mrs. Diana Mahabir Wyatt, people like Alan Alexander, who is now deceased. All of these distinguished sons and daughters passed through the Senate and they made outstanding contributions to the development of our nation. You have this particular independent senator who finds time to file a motion. Imagine this. He finds time to file a motion to kick out, to censure the 6 opposition senators because he didn't like how we spoke in the Electoral College. He did not approve how we conducted ourselves at the level of the Electoral College. I want to tell Senator Anthony Vieira, Massa de done. I want to tell Senator Vieira, Massa de done. And we are not accountable to you, Senator Anthony Vieira. We are not accountable to you. We are accountable to our leader, to our party, and through our party and leader, to the 309,000 people who voted for the United National Congress, who voted for Senator Vieira. How was he selected to be a member of the Senate? Nobody knows. The population doesn't know how he became a senator, because that is done in secrecy. It's a club. It's a society, a secret society. But you know what? When we were fighting against the PNM, who recently legalized thieving through the procurement legislation that they amended, PNM could do whatever they want with the public's monies. Mr. Vera is not concerned about that. We voted against that. They abstained. That is not you abstained on. That is a matter of the public purse. That is a matter that deals with the revenue of the state. That is a matter that deals with transparency and accountability and good governance and integrity and value for money. They spent $1 billion on purchasing 2 vessels for the Tobago Scarborough Port of Spain run, the Bukwa and the APT James. You know who decided that? Rowley and Stuart Young at the cabinet level. No accountability, no tendering, no competitive bidding. It is what Rowley says that goes. So we are losing hundreds of millions of dollars because of the absence of proper procurement legislation. And instead of this independent senator stand up in the public interest to ensure that monies are not pilfered and the treasury is not looted, and you do not support the legalization of thieving in our country, you abstain. When the time came, you abstain. When the country was saying you must vote against those amendments. So what do they stand for? What do they stand for? So, brothers and sisters of the media, we will circulate to you the letters that we have sent to the president this morning, and the letter that we sent to the president of the Senate. And we look forward to the media taking some interest and paying some attention to what unfolds on Tuesday. Tuesday is a big day for democracy in Trinidad and Tobago. Tuesday is going to be a big day for our constitution in this country. Tuesday is going to be a big day for the opposition. Because I want to tell you in closing, the opposition is an integral part of our constitution. If our opposition is not actively involved in holding the government to account and bringing the government to book, bringing the executive to account and to book, tell me who would do it? Who is going to do it? It must be the opposition. So you are trying to dismantle the opposition to do what? What is your intention? What is your motive? That is a question that we have to pose. And that is the issue that we are going to deal with. But we are patriots. All of us are patriots. We will defend our constitution. We will defend our democracy. We will defend our freedom. We will defend our freedom of expression. And as I tell you, we will fight to the last drop of our blood in defense of our democracy. We will not allow them to capsize our democracy in TNT. So members of the media, I will pause at this time and to allow members of the media to raise any issues or questions that you would like to raise with us as members of the United National Congress. My colleagues who are here with us. We have Indarsingh, who spoke earlier. We have our colleague here with me, Leida, Senator Damian Leida, and my good colleague and friend, Senator Naked. So at this time we will pause and we will now invite Senator Indarsingh to join us. And any questions you have, we will really like you to pose them at this time. Members of the media is now invited to raise any questions surrounding our press conference and statements this morning.
Okay, Brianna McKenzie from Newsday. My first question is to Mr. Indarsingh. I just want you to expand a bit on the legality or the ethics of Dr. Richards sitting on the multiple boards as it relates to the civil service regulations. Could you expand on the conflict of her roles for me?
Well, I've made it clear, and this is where she needs to answer, that as a public servant, in terms of civil service regulation 137, she is a public servant and is bound by this particular regulation. And she has to now answer in terms of her role as the principal medical officer of Trinidad and Tobago and her overall responsibility. Angostura Holdings Limited is engaged in the production and sale of alcohol, and based on that particular entity that responsibility she now holds as a director here, is she really fulfilling her role, especially to the miners of Trinidad and Tobago and her overall medical responsibilities and so on. We as an opposition have asked the question here this morning. She has a duty to respond because, as I said, we in the opposition, we are very concerned about the statistics as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic, the failed SOE, the state of our health sector in Trinidad and Tobago, and also as an opposition, we are very concerned because the Attorney General and Faris Al-Rawi, the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and the Minister of Health, Terence Indarsingh, even in the debate on the motion to revoke the state of emergency, attempted to go down the road where the leader of the opposition and the opposition has undermined the vaccination policy of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the responsibility of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to make it very clear here. Kamala Prasad Bisesa and all my colleagues who are seated here in the upper house, the lower house, the councillors within our framework of local government, we have all advocated for vaccination. We have encouraged, we have taken vaccines, we have engaged in a clarion call for all and sundry to get vaccinated and so on. We have even engaged in jingles we have in our respective constituencies. I can say from the constituency of Cuba South, we have gone on record where I made the Cuba South Hall available to all and sundry, the Cuba Point Research Chamber of Commerce and stakeholders to ensure the vaccination rollout of vaccines in Trinidad and Tobago. It is the government that has bungled. It is the government that had elderly in the rain and no toilet facilities and in chaos and so on. So again, I want to reiterate that the Kamala Prasad Bisesa opposition and the United National Congress, we have never undermined the government's rollout. It is the government that failed to procure vaccines in a timely manner, and it is the government that really presided over vaccination chaos when the time was necessary in terms of its rollout. And it is the government that has presided over the increasing numbers, the deaths, the cases, and it is the government that is presiding over the collapse of our parallel healthcare system.
No, that's add to what my colleague has said. I don't know if you all saw this article. This is something that took place at the level of the Police Service Commission. And the Secretariat to the Police Service Commission is the DPA. And there's a chap in the middle here. His name is Corey Johnson. Harrison. John Johnson, right?
No, Harrison.
Harrison. Yes, sorry. Corey Harrison. Thank you very much. Now, my colleague raised a point a short while ago, and I just want to emphasize. As a former Minister of Public Administration in the Pandya administration, I played a very critical role in the formulation of a code of conduct for public officers. And the code of conduct is very, very clear and specific. What has happened with this lady, Miriam Richards, is contrary to the Public Service Code of Conduct. You cannot be serving two masters at the same time. The public servant is independently located within the apparatus of the public service and insulated from the politician. So how can you be insulated from the politician and protected by the public service regulations, and you are accepting an appointment by the executive? You are serving two masters at the same time. This lady has to resign. She has to tender forthwith, consistent with the Public Service Code of Conduct from the Angostura Board, and as my brother said, Indarsingh, what is a principal medical officer responsible for institutions dealing with health. Health, you know. She can't find time to see about all these people who are dying. 28 dead yesterday. And we don't know how many dying today. But she has been appointed by the Prime Minister on 3 boards. NIPDEC. Where is she going to find time? At a time when the country is overwhelmed with COVID cases? And she's the principal medical officer with responsibility for institutions. The CMO telling people when they get sick, stay home. It's only when you're deteriorating, come to the hospital. By the time you come, they're dead. So what we are saying is that the point that my colleague made is that this lady is conflicted. She's conflicted. And we call on that lady, that particular individual, to resign immediately.
Yes, I'm Joshua Simongo from Guardian.
Yes, Joshua.
Let's say on Tuesday, Senator Vieira's motion is successful, censorship motion is successful. What action or course of action will the opposition take after that? Was considering after?
Well, first of all, we anticipate that there's a conspiracy between the PNM and the independent bench to clear the opposition bench. Clear out the opposition bench. The Prime Minister said it in Tobago in Mason last night. He said there is going to be a new opposition, or words to that effect. If you go to that speech, you'll hear where he specifically said, Joshua, they're going to have a new opposition, a new leadership, and the PNM will be able to deal with that new leadership, and they will be able to get through with their autonomy bill for Tobago. Yeah, new opposition. So we can only conclude that there is a diabolical and sinister plan by the PNM along with these 9 independent senators to kick us out. So if the motion is successful and they censure us, what does censure mean? It means strong disapproval of the behavior or conduct of an individual or individuals or a group. What measures are you going to take in order to manifest your strong disapproval of the conduct of these individuals? So Clarence Rambarat or the same Vieira might move an amendment to their very motion in order to impose sanctions. And the sanction could be kick off all 6 senators for the rest of the session. And as you know, the session started in September. So in other words, if we started in September, they'll kick us out until next September. So that is the outcome. They do not want an opposition in Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM wants to run this country as Maduro is running Venezuela. This is tyranny. Tyranny that we are facing in TNT. And our democracy is being eroded, subverted, and contaminated every single second, every single minute for the last 6 years under this PNM government. And here it has culminated in a bench that was supposed to bring sobriety, deep reflection, balance on legislation coming from the other place where the government is in the majority, to avoid what is called executive overreach. That is why there are 9, and that is why we are 6. So to control this government, any government, we have 15 of us, 9 in the back, 6 in front, 15. The government has 15, and the president is the 16th senator appointed by the government. So what happens is that the 15 of us supposed to bring balance and look after the public interests and promote the rights of the people. Instead of that, the 9 independent senators, it appears, have now colluded with the 15 PNM senators in order to kick us out. So, Joshua, that is the conclusion I would draw on behalf of my colleagues, that the intention of this government through Vieira is to kick us out of the Senate, all of us, after that debate. Because it can't end with just a censure. Once you get approval for a censure, what is the penalty? What is the sanction? Expulsion, suspension for the rest of the session. So they and the independent will work together and pass legislation that will infringe, trample, erode, subvert the freedoms, liberties, and rights of the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. They want to establish a full-fledged dictatorship, and the UNC is standing between them and their establishment of this full-fledged dictatorship in Trinidad and Tobago. And they have now gotten together with these independent senators in order to accomplish the objective. That is my response.
One final question. So you're saying Vieira's motion is supported by the entire independent bench, so will you seek action against the remaining members? No,
I am saying that time will tell whether, for instance, we do not know how the independent bench will vote. All we are saying is that it appears that when Vieira put forward his motion, there was not any objection. I have seen no one in the newspapers speaking out against that motion. I can only assume that silence is agreement. Paul, who is the coordinator, has said nothing. He's the coordinator of the bench. If he had an objection against that motion, he would have already recorded his position. And the 7 others have said nothing. So one can only conclude there is acquiescence. The only way that we will know is when the debate takes place on Tuesday and when they all speak. But we have to take it for granted that they have ganged up against us, the opposition senators, in order to kick us out and hijack the Senate and hijack the democracy and undermine and subvert and erode the freedoms, liberties of our people in TNT.
I just have one final question. Senator Mark, you raised question about the independent bench. Is it that the opposition has lost confidence in the president to make the right appointments for independent positions?
As far as we are concerned, the president of our republic has lost credibility in TNT by her failure to reveal the truth and all the facts and circumstances surrounding her failure to observe the law and the Constitution. When she was mandated under the Constitution, upon receiving the merit list, to submit it to the Parliament, to the Speaker, for approval. And for the President to tell us in 2021 that when she received it then, in August of 2021, what did she do? In a few seconds, somebody came and said, "See what I give you? I want it back." And the president gave back her personal list. If you want that to be believed, that is for people own. Let people conclude that. But for us, we find that very difficult to believe. What we are saying, Joshua, the time has come to review the role and functions of independent senators, so-called. The time has come for us to engage in constitutional review and reform. Whether these independent senators ought to be elected as opposed to being anointed and appointed, including ourselves, because we are nominated. So you ought a whole review of the role of the Senate in this instance. So we may have to review that whole question of the role of the Senate and these so-called independent senators, and whether we want to look at an elective principle or you want to maintain what you have. But what would happen is that there must be greater transparency, accountability, and openness. So you will know, and the population will know, if they are appointing Joshua to be a senator. Joshua is being appointed to represent youth because he has so many years of service in many organizations. He has represented the country. He has done this, he has done that here. So in other words, people will see a history of Joshua interest in promoting youth affairs and youth interests. So if you are appointing a labor representative, same background. So there's greater accountability, greater openness, greater transparency in the whole selection process. Right now, that is shrouded in secrecy and literally mystery. We don't know what is taking place. All we know, we see people come to act. We see people being appointed. We don't know how they were selected, what criteria was used to bring them there. So we really need to bring about revolutionary, radical constitutional reform, which we started when the PP was in government, as you recall. Okay, members of the media, I want to thank you very much for being with us this morning. Thank you for joining us, members of the public, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we look forward to you joining our Monday night meeting as usual on Monday, the virtual report, and we look forward to seeing you at our next press conference, which is to be held next Sunday. Thank you and have a good evening or good afternoon.